The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as another holographic projection flickered out. That made 32 worlds gone dark in the past 3 months. Elder Reed's hands trembled as he gripped the edges of his floating platform. His silver skin had lost its usual shine, turning dull with stress and fear. "The swarm has consumed the entire Blue Star sector," he announced to the assembled representatives. "The colony world of Haven fell 6 hours ago. 10 billion lives gone." The chamber erupted in panic. Hundreds of alien species, from crystalline beings to gaseous forms, all expressed their terror in their own ways. Some flashed warning colors, others released distress pheromones, and many simply wailed in their native tongues. Reed watched them all with ancient eyes. In his 1,000 years as council elder, he had never faced a threat like this. The swarm wasn't interested in negotiations. It didn't want resources or territory. It simply consumed everything in its path, breaking down all matter into its base components and absorbing it into its ever-growing mass. "Order." Reed's voice boomed through the chamber's translation system. "We must maintain order." As the panic slowly subsided, a small insectoid being raised its sensory stalk. "What of our defense fleets?" Reed activated another hologram, showing the last transmission from their most recent military engagement. The Council's sleek ships, designed more for scientific exploration than war, fired their deterrent weapons at the massive swarm vessels. The energy beams were simply absorbed, making the enemy ships grow even larger. "Our weapons are useless," Reed admitted. "We're a peaceful coalition. In 10,000 years of unity, we've never needed to develop true weapons of war. Our defense fleet is meant to handle pirates and guide lost ships home. Not." He gestured at the horrific scene playing out before them. "Then we are doomed," a crystalline being chimed, its facets dimming in despair. Reed's assistant, Till, floated up to his platform and whispered something. The elder's eyes widened, and for the first time in days, a spark of hope appeared in them. "There might be one option left," Reed said slowly, knowing his next words would cause an uproar. "There is one species in our galaxy that might stand a chance against the swarm. A species we feared so much that we quarantined their entire sector of space." The chamber erupted again, this time in protest. "You can't mean..." A gaseous being swirled in agitation. "The Deathworlders." "The humans," Reed confirmed. "Yes. They're savages," someone shouted. "Their history is nothing but war. Their minds are designed for violence." Another added, "They evolved as pursuit predators." Reed raised all 4 of his hands for silence. "Yes, they are violent. Yes, they think like predators. And that is exactly why we need them." He pressed a sequence of commands into his console, and a new hologram appeared. An old recording from when humans were first discovered. The footage showed a human hunting party taking down a massive creature using nothing but primitive projectile weapons and coordinated tactics. The council members watched in horrified fascination as the humans worked together with terrifying efficiency, using their endurance to chase their prey to exhaustion before making the kill. "The swarm is the ultimate prey," Reed said quietly, "and we need the ultimate predators to hunt it." Till approached again. "Elder, the emergency beacon is ready, but once activated, we cannot shut it off. The humans will come." Reed looked out at his fellow council members. In their eyes, he saw fear, but he also saw something else. Desperate hope. They had run out of options. Their peaceful civilization was about to be consumed by a mindless force of destruction. Perhaps it was time to fight fire with fire. 1,000 years ago, we judged humanity too dangerous for galactic society, Reed said, his hand hovering over the activation switch. We feared their capacity for violence would destroy us. Now that same capacity might be our only hope for survival. He pressed the switch. Somewhere in quarantine space, an ancient beacon began to pulse, sending out a signal that hadn't been used in a millennium. A call for help, aimed at the one species the galaxy feared most. The Deathworlders were about to return. Deep in the restricted sector of the Orion Arm, Admiral James Stone stood at the viewport of the UES Thunder, watching his fleet perform combat drills. 300 warships, each a masterpiece of human engineering, moved in perfect formation against the backdrop of stars. Humanity had been busy during their 1,000 years of isolation. The alarm caught everyone by surprise. "Sir," Lieutenant Rogers burst onto the bridge, his eyes wide. "The deep space sensors just picked up a signal. It's the Galactic Council's emergency beacon." Stone's jaw tightened. Every human child learned about the Council in school, how they had discovered humanity, studied them, and decided they were too dangerous to join galactic society. The Council had feared humanity's predatory instincts, their capacity for violence, and their frighteningly quick technological advancement. "Put it on the main screen," Stone ordered. The message was simple, a desperate plea for help against an unstoppable enemy. As Stone read the details about the swarm, a cold smile crossed his face. This was what humanity had been preparing for, even if they hadn't known it. "Send word to Earth Command," he said. "Wake up every ship in the fleet. All crews to battle stations." Within hours, the entire human defense force was buzzing with activity. In the massive hangar bays of the Thunder, crews loaded weapons and ran final checks on fighter craft. The ship's AI systems, another innovation that had made the Council nervous, ran millions of combat simulations against the swarm data provided in the distress signal. Stone called a meeting of his senior staff in the war room. The holographic display showed the Council's territory, with red markers indicating systems already lost to the swarm. 1,000 years ago, they called us too violent, Stone addressed his officers. They said our minds were too focused on combat, on hunting, on war. They locked us away in this corner of space and told us to stay here. He zoomed in on the areas where the swarm was currently attacking. But look what peace got them. They forgot that sometimes you need hunters. Sometimes you need warriors. Sometimes you need humans. Captain Wells, his tactical officer, studied the swarm's movement patterns. "They've never faced anything like us, Admiral. The Council's ships are basically armed research vessels. But ours," she grinned, "we built these ships for war." The Thunder's AI displayed the fleet's capabilities. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a continent. Their hulls were made of materials developed through centuries of weapons testing. The crews had trained their entire lives for combat, carrying on the ancient traditions of human warriors while mastering technologies that would have terrified the Council. "Begin the jump preparations," Stone ordered. "All ships to Formation Delta. We're going hunting." As the fleet prepared to leave their restricted sector for the first time in a millennium, Stone received a personal message from Earth Command. It was simple and to the point. Show them why they were right to fear us, and why they were wrong to abandon us. The massive engines of 300 warships lit up the darkness of space. Humanity's finest weapons, forged in 1,000 years of isolation, were about to be unleashed. The Council had feared human violence without understanding its purpose. They were about to learn that the same predatory instincts that made humans dangerous also made them the perfect protectors. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Rogers announced. Stone looked at the tactical display one last time. The swarm thought it was the apex predator in the galaxy. It was about to meet something it had never encountered before, a species that had turned violence into an art form, that had mastered the delicate balance between savagery and civilization. "Jump coordinates locked on Council space," the AI reported. Stone nodded. "Take us out. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." The fleet vanished in a series of brilliant flashes, leaving their prison behind. The hunters were loose, and the greatest predators in known space were going to war. The Council's main station shook as 300 human warships emerged from jump space. The massive black vessels, covered in sharp angles and weapon ports, made the Council's sleek silver ships look like toys in comparison. Elder Reed watched from the observation deck as the human fleet took up defensive positions around the station. Each ship moved with predatory grace, like sharks circling their prey. The council members behind him whispered in fear. "They came," Reed said softly. "They actually came." The human flagship, twice the size of any council vessel, moved into docking position. Its name was written in large letters along its hull. UES Thunder. Inside the council's grand meeting chamber, the air was thick with tension. When Admiral Stone walked in with his team, many council members flinched. Humans were taller than most species, and their predatory eyes and sharp teeth made them look dangerous even when they smiled. "Welcome to Council Space," Reed said, his translator converting his musical language into human standard English. "We are grateful for your response to our distress signal." Stone's smile didn't reach his eyes. 1,000 years is a long time to wait for an invitation, Elder Reed. The Admiral's team spread out, their military training obvious in every movement. Captain Wells activated a holographic display showing the swarm's advance. "Your message said 32 systems are already lost," Stone said. "Show us everything you know about the enemy." The Council's scientific advisor, a floating ball of light named Glow, moved forward. "The swarm appeared 3 months ago. They consume everything: planets, ships, energy itself. Our weapons have no effect." Stone watched the footage of council ships firing uselessly at swarm vessels. He turned to Wells. "Their weapons are too clean. They're trying to disable, not destroy." "Clean?" A crystalline council member chimed in confusion. "You're firing stun weapons at a planet-eating swarm," Wells explained. "You need to hit them with something that will actually hurt." The council members shifted uncomfortably at the casual mention of causing pain. This was why they had feared humans: their easy familiarity with violence. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. A swarm scout ship had jumped into the system. "Enemy vessel detected," the station's AI announced. "Council defense fleet moving to intercept." Stone watched as the council's ships formed up, their formation beautiful but tactically useless. "Time to show you how humans fight," he said. "Thunder, target the scout ship. Weapons free." The human flagship turned with terrifying speed. Its weapon ports opened, revealing arrays that made the council members gasp in horror. The Thunder fired a single shot, a concentrated beam of dark energy that cut through space itself. The swarm scout ship didn't just die. It was erased from existence, leaving nothing behind but scattered atoms. Silence filled the council chamber. "That was a planet-killer weapon," one council member whispered in shock. "No," Stone corrected. "That was a warning shot. Our actual planet killers are still in storage." He turned to face the council. "This is why you feared us. Humans don't just fight. We make a science out of warfare. While you were building better research ships, we were designing weapons that could crack worlds." Reed floated forward. "And this is why we need you. The swarm is unlike anything we faced. We need—" He hesitated. "You need killers," Stone finished for him. "You need hunters. You need humans." The council members looked at each other. The humans were everything they remembered: violent, dangerous, frightening. But watching that swarm ship disappear had changed something. Fear of humans was slowly being replaced by fear of what would happen without them. "Show us," Reed said finally. "Show us how to fight." Stone's smile was all teeth. Lesson 1. When hunting monsters, you need to be scarier than they are. And trust me, Elder Reed, humans can be very, very scary when we need to be. The Council was about to learn just how right they had been to fear humanity's capacity for violence, and just how grateful they would be for it. Lieutenant Emma Black stared at the holographic display until her eyes hurt. For 3 days straight, she had been studying the swarm's attack patterns. As the Thunder's lead xenobiologist, she knew something wasn't adding up. "They're not just eating everything in sight," she muttered, drawing strange looks from the Council scientists around her. They're hunting for something specific. The research lab aboard the Thunder was a strange mix of human military precision and alien technology. Council observers watched nervously as Emma pulled up more data on the swarm's movements. "Look here," she pointed to the map. "They've skipped over resource-rich systems to attack specific planets. That's not random feeding behavior." Her AI assistant, Hunter, projected a new pattern overlay. Analysis confirms. Swarm movement shows 89% correlation with this ancient star chart. The Council scientists floated closer, their fear of humans temporarily forgotten in their curiosity. Elder Reed himself had come to observe the human research methods. "What star chart?" he asked. Emma's fingers flew over the controls. "It's a map from your own archives. The precursor civilization, the ones who came before the Council. The swarm is following their trail exactly." Stone walked into the lab, his heavy boots echoing on the metal floor. "Explain it simple, Lieutenant." "Sir, we've been looking at this all wrong," Emma said, excitement in her voice. "Everyone assumed the swarm was just consuming systems randomly. But we humans, we're predators. We know how to recognize hunting patterns." She brought up a new display, showing Earth's ancient savanna. "Look at how lions hunt. They don't chase every prey they see. They pick targets, they herd them, they force them where they want them to go." The display shifted to show the swarm's movement. The swarm is doing the same thing. They're herding the Council races, pushing them away from certain systems that contain precursor ruins. Reed's silvery skin pulsed with shock. "The forbidden zones. Those areas are under strict quarantine. The precursor artifacts are too dangerous to study." "That's exactly what they're looking for," Emma said. "The swarm isn't just eating. They're searching, like wolves digging through snow to find hidden prey." Stone's eyes narrowed. "They're looking for something specific in those ruins, something they think the precursors left behind." Emma nodded. "And they're consuming everything in their path to find it. But look here, their search pattern. It's getting more focused. They're closing in on something." She highlighted one specific system near the edge of Council space. "The Omega Ruins, the largest precursor site ever found. That's where they're heading." The Council scientists began chattering in alarm. Reed raised his hands for silence. "The Omega Ruins are the most dangerous precursor site known," he said. "The energy readings alone have killed research teams. We sealed it off centuries ago." Stone smiled grimly. "And that's exactly why the swarm wants it. Lieutenant Black, what's your recommendation?" Emma stood straighter. "Sir, we need to beat them there. Whatever's hidden in those ruins, whatever the precursors left behind. The swarm is willing to eat entire civilizations to get it. We can't let that happen." "Agreed." Stone turned to Reed. "Elder, we need everything you have on the Omega Ruins. And I mean everything. Even the classified files you don't want us to see." Reed hesitated only for a moment. "The ruins, they emit radiation that drives most species mad. Even our strongest shields can't protect against it." Stone's smile grew wider. "Good thing humans are already a little mad, isn't it? Signal the fleet. We're going hunting in some ruins." As the humans prepared for their next move, the Council members watched in amazement. Where they had seen only mindless destruction, the humans had seen a predator's cunning. Where they had feared to look deeper, humanity had dived right in. Perhaps, they thought, this was why humans had been quarantined. Not just for their violence, but for their willingness to face the darkest corners of the galaxy head-on. The war room aboard the Thunder was packed. Admiral Stone stood at the central holotable, surrounded by his captains and Council observers. Above them floated a massive 3D map of the space around the Omega Ruins. "The swarm fleet will arrive in 36 hours, Stone said, pointing to the red markers representing enemy forces. "We're going to be ready for them." Captain Wells stepped forward. "We've divided our fleet into 3 hunter groups. Just like wolves hunting larger prey, we'll surround them and attack from multiple directions. The council members watched in fascination as the human ship's positions appeared on the map. The formation looked chaotic at first glance, but there was a deadly purpose to it. "Look familiar?" Stone asked Emma, who stood nearby with her research data. She nodded. "It's exactly like a pack of prehistoric hunters taking down a mammoth. Some distract from the front, while others strike from behind. Humans are the only species in known space who evolved as pursuit predators," Stone explained to the council observers. "We didn't just chase our prey. We exhausted them, wore them down, made them make mistakes." The hologram shifted to show the trap they'd set. 20 evacuated systems, rich with resources, lay directly in the swarm's path to the Omega ruins. "They'll think they're herding us away from the ruins," Wells said with a predatory smile. "But we're actually herding them into a kill zone." Stone activated another display, showing their secret weapon. The Council's ships might not have proper weapons, but they have something better. The strongest energy shields ever made. We've modified them into a net. The plan was audacious. Hundreds of Council ships would create an energy barrier, trapping the swarm in a confined space. Then the human fleet would attack from all sides, using their planet-killer weapons at full power. One problem, Reed pointed out. The swarm absorbs energy weapons. Won't they just grow stronger? "That's exactly what we want them to think," Stone replied. He nodded to Emma. "The swarm operates like a single organism," she explained. "When they absorb energy, they have to distribute it through their entire fleet. We're going to overload their system." Wells pulled up the weapon specs. "Our ships will hit them with more power than they can possibly absorb. Like forcing someone to drink from a fire hose. They'll either have to release the energy or burst." The council scientists muttered among themselves, both impressed and horrified by the human strategy. It was elegant and brutal at the same time. "What about the Omega ruins?" Reed asked. "Their radiation will affect your ships too." "We're counting on it," Stone said. "The radiation drives most species mad because it amplifies aggressive instincts. But humans," he smiled, "we're already aggressive. We've learned to control it. The radiation will just make us fight harder." The next few hours were a flurry of activity. Human crews prepared their weapons while Council engineers modified their shield systems. The trap was almost ready. Stone stood at his command window, watching ships move into position. The Council had feared human violence for 1,000 years. Now that same violence was their last hope. "All ships report ready," Admiral Rogers announced from his station. "Send the signal," Stone ordered. "Operation Thunderstrike is go." Across the fleet, crews manned their battle stations, weapons powered up, shields hummed to life, and targeting systems locked onto predetermined coordinates. In the war room, Reed watched the humans work with newfound respect. "You're actually looking forward to this, aren't you?" "Elder Reed," Stone replied. "Humans have been preparing for a fight like this since we first looked up at the stars. The swarm thinks it's the galaxy's apex predator." His eyes gleamed. "Time to show them what real hunters can do." The trap was set. Now all they had to do was wait for their prey to arrive. The swarm arrived exactly as predicted. Their massive ships, made of twisted metal and absorbed matter, poured into the system like a dark tide. They moved straight toward the seemingly abandoned Council worlds, exactly as the humans had planned. "All ships maintain position," Stone ordered from the Thunder's bridge. "Let them think they've got us running scared." The radiation from the Omega ruins pulsed through space, making Council observers dizzy. But the human crews seemed to grow more focused, their predatory instincts enhanced by the strange energy. "Swarm fleet is in position," Wells reported, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "They've taken the bait." Stone watched as the last swarm ship entered the trap zone. Now, hundreds of Council ships decloaked, their modified shields linking together to form a massive energy barrier. The swarm was caught in a cage of pure energy, like insects trapped in amber. "Hunter Groups 1 and 2, begin your attack runs," Stone commanded. Group 3, hold position as reserve. Remember your training. We hunt as a pack. The human fleet moved with terrifying precision. Ships that had trained together for years executed complex maneuvers that looked more like a deadly dance than a military formation. The swarm reacted instantly, turning their weapons on the human ships. But instead of running, the human vessels charged straight into the enemy fire. "They're absorbing our energy weapons," a council observer shouted in panic. Stone smiled. "Exactly as planned. All ships, increase power to maximum. Give them more than they can handle." The space around them lit up like a new sun as every human ship fired their planet-killer weapons at full strength. The swarm ships eagerly absorbed the energy, growing larger and more distorted. Energy absorption at 180% of their normal capacity, Emma reported from her station, monitoring the swarm's biology. 200%. 250%. The first swarm ship exploded in a spectacular burst of light. Unable to process the massive amount of energy being forced into it, the ship literally tore itself apart. Others quickly followed. "They're trying to redistribute the energy through their fleet," Emma said excitedly. "But there's nowhere for it to go. The Council's shield barrier is containing everything inside." The swarm, for the first time in known history, began to retreat. But the human fleet had positioned itself perfectly, cutting off every escape route. "They're panicking," Stone observed. "They've never been hunted before, never been trapped. Time to show them how it feels to be prey." The Thunder led the final assault, driving straight into the heart of the swarm fleet. Human ships moved in coordinated attack patterns that looked chaotic, but struck with deadly precision. "Energy levels critical in remaining swarm ships," Emma announced. "They're going to blow. All ships, clear the blast zone," Stone ordered. "Council ships, maintain that barrier no matter what." The explosion when the swarm fleet finally detonated was visible from 3 systems away. The Council's energy barrier contained the blast, protecting the surrounding space from destruction. When the light faded, nothing remained of the mighty swarm fleet except scattered debris. The trap had worked perfectly. Cheers erupted across the human fleet. Even the Council observers joined in, their fear of humans momentarily forgotten in the joy of victory. "Admiral," Emma called out, her voice urgent. The explosion cleared some of the interference. "I'm picking up a signal from the Omega ruins. Something's down there, something the swarm was willing to die for." Stone turned to Reed, who had watched the entire battle in amazed silence. "Well, Elder? Ready to find out what's so important about those ruins?" Reed looked at the scattered remains of the swarm fleet, then back at the humans who had destroyed them. Perhaps it was time to trust these predators who had just saved them all. "Lead the way, Admiral," he said. "I think we're about to discover why the precursors sealed these ruins in the first place." The Omega ruins floated before them, a massive structure of ancient metal and strange energy fields. The combined Human Council expedition approached cautiously, their ship's sensors prodding the mysterious facility. "The radiation is stronger here," Emma reported from her research station aboard the Thunder. "But it's not random. It's a signal." Stone stood on his bridge, watching as teams prepared for the expedition inside. "What kind of signal?" It's a warning," Emma said, her eyes widening as she decoded the energy patterns. "The precursors left this as a message. The swarm, they've been here before." Reeve floated nearby, his silvery skin pulsing with anxiety. "What do you mean, been here before?" The expedition teams entered the ruins through a massive airlock. Human soldiers led the way, their weapons ready, while Council scientists followed with their scanning equipment. The strange radiation made the humans more alert, their natural hunting instincts enhanced to razor sharpness. Inside, they found something nobody expected. The walls were covered in ancient writing, and among them were images that made the Council members gasp, pictures of the swarm, but from millions of years ago. "The precursors didn't just know about the swarm," Emma said, reading the translations from her tablet. "They created them as a weapon." Stone touched one of the wall panels, and a hologram sprang to life. It showed the history of the swarm, originally designed as a self-replicating cleanup system for toxic worlds. But something went wrong. The swarm evolved, grew hungry, and turned on their creators. The precursors couldn't destroy them. Emma continued reading. So they built this place, a control center. They used it to force the swarm into dormancy, then scattered them across distant galaxies. But now they're awake, Stone said grimly. And they came back looking for this place, trying to destroy the one thing that could control them. Deep in the heart of the ruins, they found what the swarm had been so desperate to reach. A massive crystal matrix, pulsing with the same energy that had driven most species mad. But the humans, with their predatory minds already adapted to violence and control, could withstand it. The precursors were peaceful, like us, Reed said, understanding dawning in his ancient eyes. They couldn't control their creation because they didn't understand violence. But humans, we understand it all too well. Stone finished. We learned to control it, to use it when needed, and cage it when not. Emma worked quickly at the crystal matrix's controls. The swarm is still out there, scattered, but regrouping. But with this, we can put them back to sleep, maybe even reprogram them to their original purpose. Stone turned to Reed. The Council feared us because we were predators, because we understood violence in a way you never could. But sometimes you need predators, not just to fight your battles, but to protect the peace. Reed looked at the humans around him, warriors who had saved his civilization, scientists who had solved an ancient mystery, predators who had become protectors. The quarantine ends today, Reed announced. Humanity has proven itself not just through force, but through wisdom. You understood violence enough to control it, both in yourselves and in the swarm. As the human fleet prepared to use the precursor device to finally end the swarm threat, Stone addressed his crew and the Council observers. 1,000 years ago, you feared what we might become, he said to Reed. You never considered what we might teach you. Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from those you fear most. The crystal matrix hummed to life under human control. Across the galaxy, the scattered swarm felt the call of their ancient masters, now guided by human hands that understood both creation and destruction, both violence and peace. The Deathworlders had not just saved the galaxy. They had proven that understanding darkness was the first step to protecting the light.